their camp reached out to me. So I said, great, I would love to talk to her. But it was very difficult to tie it down, and they wanted to travel. And see, the thing is, like, you can't, if I go somewhere, then there's going to be other people in the room. And they want to control a lot of things, I'm sure, according to the Brett Breyer interview on Fox. Like, people were waving them off. That's a distraction. People in the room, like, my whole goal with her and with him is just talk. Just have a conversation like a human being. You find out things about people. You get a sense of them, at least, a real sense. That was it. I don't give a fuck what we talk about. I really don't. I just want to talk to you. Who the fuck are you?
Do you think they think that you're on his side and then?
If you enjoy content like this, then make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out a ton. Let's get back to the video. Joe Rogan had Donald Trump on his podcast, and it absolutely broke the internet, no doubt about it. It absolutely won Donald Trump a whole lot of votes. Will it be enough for Donald Trump to actually win the election? And, you know, in regards to like all the foul play that could possibly go on, you know what I'm talking about. Who knows? But more importantly, it's really bad press for Kamala Harris, and it could have been worse press if she actually went on the Joe Rogan Experience, on Joe Rogan's podcast. But it's still bad press for her to just refuse to go on Joe Rogan's podcast. And Joe Rogan talks about the entire situation, airs everything out, what happened between Joe Rogan and Kamala Harris. Why did Kamala Harris not end up going on the Joe Rogan podcast? He airs out the whole thing, and it really, really hurts Kamala Harris's reputation. And I think this might be, unless, like I said, there's some kind of foul play that goes on in the next election, this might be the nail in the coffin for Kamala Harris and her election chances. Let's get into this clip here from the Joe Rogan Experience of Joe Rogan absolutely destroying Kamala Harris and her entire reputation.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
These guys are coming here. I'm like, I love these guys so much. Too bad. It's just there's nothing going on.
Well, I heard you might have needed to cancel on us to get Kamala Harris on.
I was not going to do that. I would have had to. I knew you guys flew from England, and I wasn't going to cancel on you because she had an opportunity to come in. You could look at this and you say, oh, you're being a diva. But she had an opportunity to come here when she was in Texas, and I literally gave them an open invitation. I said, anytime. I said, if she's done at 10 o'clock, we'll come back here at 10 o'clock. I go, I'll do it at 9 in the morning. I'll do it at 10 p.m. I'll do it at midnight. If she's up. She wants to, drink a Red Bull, fucking party on.
Yeah, but I think this idea that you're being a diva is silly because you're offering her the opportunity to do exactly what the other candidate did, right?
Well, she actually reached out when she found out.
And also, at the same time, that Joe Rogan Donald Trump interview is at like something like 50 million views right now. I mean, that is an opportunity for Kamala Harris. The tides have completely shifted, Mainstream media and people like Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, they don't have the most pull anymore for influence in the culture. It's people like Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan probably is the most influential person when it comes to culture and being able to shift something like an election. Like, it's not mainstream media. It's not going to a Fox News interview. It's going on the Joe Rogan Experience, Joe Rogan's podcast. And I don't think Donald Trump's appearance on it was all that great. I honestly think Joe Rogan was responsible for it not being that great. I don't think he asked great questions, but regardless, just getting Donald Trump and having him sit down across from Joe Rogan and having him come off as a friend of Joe Rogan. I mean, that's 50 million people that watch Joe Rogan that get to see Donald Trump be friends with him and see Joe Rogan like Donald Trump, laugh with Donald Trump. It's good PR for him. The thing is, if Kamala Harris goes on there, she would absolutely fold if any serious question was asked at all. In regards to this diva thing with Joe Rogan, a lot of people are saying it's so ridiculous for Joe Rogan to expect Kamala Harris to fly all the way to Austin, Texas, 7 days out from an election. Donald Trump did literally that. So why is it ridiculous for Kamala Harris to be expected to do that when she's not doing nearly as much as Donald Trump is? She's not doing nearly as many rallies or speeches and interviews as Donald Trump is. Not even close. She's actually kind of in hiding right now. And she's also doing, she did Shannon Sharp's podcast the other day, in person, by the way. So it's not ridiculous at all. Not at all. Not at all. It wasn't ridiculous for Donald Trump, and it's not ridiculous for Kamala Harris. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you think it's ridiculous for Joe Rogan to ask that. But I think it's a pretty simple ask, especially considering the platform that she would be put on if she accepted.
He was coming on. So their camp reached out to me. So I said, great, I would love to talk to her. But it was very difficult to tie it down, and they wanted to travel. And see, the thing is, like, you can't, if I go somewhere, then there's going to be other people in the room. and they want to control a lot of things, I'm sure, according to the Brett Breyer interview on Fox. Like, people were waving them off. That's a distraction. People in the room, like, my whole goal with her and with him is just talk. Just have a conversation like a human being. You find out things about people. You get a sense of them, at least, a real sense. That was it. I don't give a fuck what we talk about. I really don't. I just want to talk to you. Who the fuck are you?
Do you think they think that you're on his side and they're...
If you enjoy content like this, then make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out a ton. Let's get back to the video. You know what will be very interesting, I believe? I think Joe Rogan was kind of playing it safe with this first Trump interview because it holds so much weight in the culture. It probably makes him a little bit nervous because he does have that. It's crazy to say, but Joe Rogan has the ability to influence an election, push it one way or the other. I think it's going to be very interesting if Trump wins, loses, whatever. If he decides to retire from running for president, if he loses, or he wins and then he can't run anymore, whatever. It'd be interesting if Donald Trump goes back on Joe Rogan's podcast and then Joe Rogan asks the questions that he genuinely wants to ask, such as like, what kind of, alien files did you uncover? Like, who have you talked to about aliens? What about, the classified CIA stuff that you know about JFK? And I remember Donald Trump made some little comment last time he went on Joe Rogan, or the only time, but when he went on Joe Rogan, about him not being able to discuss the JFK files because some people are still alive who were involved with it. So that'd be interesting to see in another 4 years, or if Donald Trump loses, whatever, if Joe Rogan actually asks those questions that we all want to hear the answers to. That'd be cool.
I'm more wary of you?
I don't know. I mean, there's just because of my appearance, there's always been this assumption that I'm some right-wing MAGA guy, which is, I was a Bernie supporter. I am not. I'm a politically homeless person for sure. I always considered myself a left-wing person. I never thought I would ever vote right-wing. But then the tides of culture shifted in a very bizarre way. And it just made me, over time, much more aware of what this stuff is really all about. Because what this stuff is really all about is just these natural human behavior patterns and these tribal instincts that we have. And it overpowers all discussions. It overpowers what's good for the collective group. It overpowers everything. It's just people pick a fucking team, and then whatever that team says, they can do no harm. They will do their best to marginalize the horrible effects of the furthest extreme version of that, whether it's Antifa or the Proud Boys. They'll minimalize the... It's the same thing, man. It's the same thing. If you look at what's going on with the liberals right now, so progressives they want the war in Ukraine to be funded. They want to censor speech online, and they want to give the World Health Organization, which is deeply influenced by Big Pharma, including the FDA, deeply influenced. The revolving door between the FDA and pharmaceutical drug companies is legendary. And they want to give them control over what we take and what we don't take. And that's...
Yeah, I will say both sides have this issue. Joe Rogan is correct. Both sides have this issue. I do think it's a whole lot more prominent on the left than it is the right. And I think that's kind of a recent development. As the right wing starts to break off into different branches, the left wing is kind of, you're either continuously getting more woke or you get kicked out of the cult. That's kind of how they operate. The right wing is like, we agree on most things. We agree that killing babies is probably wrong, right? That's pretty simple. We can all agree on that. Traditional values is probably the way to go. We like our Constitution. We like the right to bear arms, freedom of speech, all that stuff. But then you start to disagree with people on the Ukraine stuff. And especially when it comes to the Middle East war, that's where people really start to branch off. And I like how we're able to disagree on those things, but also realize that the bigger picture, we can still be on the same team. Like, I disagree with a ton of right-wingers or people. Like, I think that we should basically just be isolationists at this point. I think that's just the easiest solution. I know it would never happen, but that's what I would push for if I had any sort of power. I would say, let's solve all of the issues within our own country, the obvious ones at least, the crime problem, the economy problem, the immigration problem, solve all that and spend my money that you're taking out of my pocket without me being able to choose. Let's spend that on things that actually affect me, other than using that money to go and take oil from other countries or get us involved in, supplying weapons and arms and ammo to these other countries and these other wars that have nothing to do with me. How about we take these tax dollars that you're stealing from my pocket that I earned and you use it on things that actually affect me? That's my stance on it. And until those things are fixed, I think we should have nothing to do with anything outside of the United States. I know that would never happen, and a lot of right-wingers disagree with me on that, and that's fine. Because overall, we still agree on the bigger picture of things, and the fact that this is a fight between good and evil, not right and left wing, we kind of all understand that. So I agree with Joe Rogan that both sides have this issue. It's a whole lot more prominent on the left, though. Like a whole lot more, because if you don't completely agree and continuously get more and more woke with your stances, you just get shunned. You get kicked out. That's what happened to Joe Rogan. That's what happened to Russell Brand, Anna Kasparian, etc.
Crazy. And that doesn't make sense because that's not what the liberals were when I was a kid. My parents were hippies. You know, we lived in San Francisco during the Vietnam War. My parents were like straight up hippies. That's how I was raised. And so for me, it was always like the liberals were the ones who wanted education and open-mindedness. The liberals who were the ones with the ACLU let the Nazis talk and let them have a rally. They said you can't infringe on people's free speech because if you infringe on the speech of people that you disagree with, you're being a fucking hypocrite. The only solution to bad speech is better speech. We've always known that. But when they had the power over social media and these collective groups of people that all had the same ideology, and then that tribal mentality kicks in and you lose the perspective that you should have as an educated person that recognizes that everyone has to be able to talk and we have to figure out who's right. And you might be wrong. You might be wrong, and you might be clinging to this idea that you're right, and you're going to do the whole thing a terrible disservice.
Well, they'd rather bury their head in the sand than and just, you know, keep thinking the comfortable lie rather than accept the uncomfortable truth that they might be wrong. And everybody agrees whenever you say sunlight is the best disinfectant, right? Everybody of all sides will agree, and yet there's one side that really tries to censor speech that doesn't agree with them, and then there's another side that really genuinely just wants all speech to be out there so we can see in the marketplace of ideas who wins, who loses, who is correct and who is wrong. There's one side that likes to censor things and one side that likes to see everything. Usually the side that likes to censor stuff is hiding something / thinks that they are behind or losing, and that's the left wing that likes to censor things. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you guys think about Joe Rogan addressing the Kamala Harris refusing to go on the Joe Rogan Experience. What do you think about this whole Joe Rogan versus Kamala Harris situation?